ओम परतत्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्णसमाज्ञया यो धर्मस्थापनरतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्. We are studying here Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga, and we are toward the end of the last lecture, the real and the apparent man. In this, Swamiji has shown that Vedanta consists of steps, dualism, Vishishtadvaita and Advaita, and all the ideas of Dvaitis and Advaitis about transmigration, about Dvaitis and Vishishtadvaitis about transmigration, are refuted by the Buddhist logic that we experience only the qualities, we have never experienced the substance, and so why you can assume it. And their logic is very sharp, but one mistake is there, that who experiences the continuity? They say that only change is continuous, but there has to be somebody to experience the two links of the chain. And so, Advaita only comes in to explain that. Advaita tells the Dvaitis that your idea that there is a soul is right, but your assumption of its real nature is wrong. If you could have experienced that, you would not experience the qualities at all. You will not experience the body or the mind once you experience the real nature of yourself. And you will find that it is infinite. And to the Buddhist he says that your idea is correct, that we are at present experiencing only the qualities, but you have no right to assume that there is nothing behind it. And if we experience the real nature, then only the problem will be solved, then only we will know what it is. And when we experience, we find that your thing is true, that when we experience the qualities, we are not experiencing the reality. But when we experience, we can experience the reality, and then these qualities will vanish. In that way, Swamiji has established that. Then he has, in the last para, we will read it again, two questions now arise. The first is it possible to realize this? So far it is doctrine, philosophy, but is it possible to realize it? And Swamiji's straight answer is, it is. And what is the proof? There are men who have realized it. What else can be the proof? The proof of, in English there is a part of the proof of pudding is in eating. So, the only proof Vedanta provides is that there are men of realization. Without that there is no proof. Unless you show a person who has realized and what is his life, we can never believe in theories. And so, Vedanta is not a philosophy at all. Vedanta has been rationalized afterwards. Vedanta is the record of experiences. Especially if we come across the two big Upanishads, Chandogya and Brihadaranyaka, we'll see that it continuously proceeds with examples. Continuously proceeds with examples of men of realization. And so, Swamiji says it is. And the proof he provides, there are men still living in this world. Chandogya and Brihadaranyaka both said this also, that this is the state of realization. And even today it is applicable. If you follow like this, you will realize it today. And there is proof that there are people like that, there are men still living in this world for whom delusion has vanished forever. Second question from this. Do they immediately die after such realization? That means if they realize I am not this body, I am not this mind, then does the body or the mind drop down? That is the next question. Not so. Not so soon as we should think. We think on the basis of this our idea that if I am not the body, I am not the mind, then they will go away. But that is our assumption. And when Swamiji said there are men of realization, that means they are still living. So that itself again is the proof. And that he explains by the theory of prarabdha or two wheels, free wheel and the secondary wheel. Two wheels joined to one pole are running together. If I get hold of one of the wheels and with an axe cut the pole asunder, the wheel which I have got hold of stops. But upon the other wheel is its past momentum. So it runs on a little and then falls down. So on the body and the mind there is past momentum, so they go on for some time. This pure and perfect being, the soul, is one wheel, one example. And this external hallucination of body and mind is the other wheel, joined together by the pole of work of karma. Karma means the sanskara has the past momentum. Knowledge is the axe which will sever the bond between the two, and the wheel of the soul will stop. Stop thinking that what it will stop? Stop thinking that it is coming and going, living and dying. Stop thinking that it is nature and has wants that it is. The soul thinking that it is nature and has wants and desires. And we will find that it is perfect, desireless. But upon the other wheel, that of the body and mind, will be the momentum of past acts. So it will live for some time until that momentum of past work is exhausted and that momentum is worked away. Until that momentum is worked away. And then the body and mind fall and the soul becomes free. Soul has realized freedom, but it works through the body and mind for some time and then it is only free. No more is there any going to heaven and coming back, not even any going in the Brahmaloka or to any of the highest of the spheres, for where is he to come from or to go to? Because he realizes his own nature as all pervading. The man who has now, from this he concludes what is the aim of Vedanta. The man who has in this life attained to this state, for whom, for a minute at least, the ordinary vision of the world has changed and the reality has been apparent. Apparent means clear. He is called the living free, Jivan Mukta. This is the goal of the Vedantin, to attain freedom while living. So, this itself proves that he does not die. There are living people living. And here Swamiji says, the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, in which the perception of the dualism vanishes, maybe only for a minute. This is the important point to understand. Swamiji shows the difference between perception and awareness. And Swamiji is giving an example, the best example for that. The rope and snake example does not hold here. Because when the light falls and we see that rope, we will never see the snake again. But in our life, now let us take the example and explain. But you understand, in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, we realize that there is only one reality. But that two things are there, state of the mind called Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and the knowledge that there is only one reality, or the knowledge that the world is unreal, or the knowledge that my body and mind are not mine nor real. So this is for one moment. Now the perception will change, but the knowledge will not change. The mind state will be changed. Mind is such a thing that it never can stay in one state permanently. Impossible. So that state of the mind will change. And in the state of the mind, I will perceive the world again. But with a big difference. That the knowledge gained there that the reality is only one will never go. That is defined as knowledge. That which comes and becomes permanent is knowledge. And which changes is ignorance. So that knowledge will not change. Now, this Swamiji explains through the best example. Once in Western India, I was traveling in the desert country on the coast of the Indian Ocean. Western India, coast of the ocean, desert country. That means Rajasthan and Gujarat. For days and days, I used to travel on foot through the desert, but it was to my surprise that I saw every day beautiful lakes with trees all around them, and the shadows of the trees upside down and vibrating there. So full experience of the lake along with the shadow of the trees. How wonderful it looks, and they call this a desert country. I said to myself. Nearly a month I travelled, seeing these wonderful lakes and trees and plants. One day I was very thirsty and wanted to have a drink of water, so I started to go to one of these clear, beautiful lakes, and as I approached, it vanished. So, perception has changed, consciousness has changed. First, perception of water, consciousness of water. Then perception of no water, consciousness there was no water. And it reflected on this last 1 month's experience. That I was seeing water, but it was not real. And with a flash it came to my brain, this is the mirage about which I have read all my life. And with that came also the idea that throughout the whole of this month, every day, I had been seeing the mirage and did not know it. The next morning I began my march. There was again the lake. So perception has come back. That water I see. But with it came also the idea that it was the mirage and not a true lake. So inside the knowledge is that it is a mirage. That means sand appearing as water. Perception water, reality water. Perception no water, reality no water but sand. Now perception water, but reality is not water. The awareness is not that of water. The knowledge is not that of water. The knowledge is not only of not water, but knowledge of sand appearing as water. So we understood the difference between perception and knowledge. Please remember this very much. And that is the life of Jivanmukta. His perception may be like ours, not exactly like us. But his awareness is totally different. Because for 1 minute at least, he has seen that the appearance of this unreal has vanished. And so he has really realized this unreal. Now it will not come back. Appearance may come back, but the realism has vanished. So this desert example or mirage example is the best for it. There was again the lake, but with it came also the idea that it was the mirage and not a true lake. So is it with the universe. We are all traveling in this mirage of the world day after day, month after month, year after year, not knowing that it is a mirage. One day it will break up, but it will come back again. The body has to remain under the power of past karma, and so the mirage will come back. This world will come back upon us so long as we are bound by karma. Men, women, animals, plants, our attachments and duties all will come back to us, but not with the same power. There is no power in them. The perception is there. Sri Ramakrishna has beautifully described it, our attachment and duties. So, Sri Ramakrishna says everything will appear, but it cannot raise its head. That means there is no power in them. It may appear like that, but there is no power in them. But not with the same power. Under the influence of the new knowledge, the strength of karma will be broken, its poison will be lost. That means attachment and all that is lost. It becomes transformed. For along with it there comes the idea that we know it now, that the sharp distinction between the reality and the mirage has been known. So knowledge once again does not change. This world will not then be the same world as before. Now, so 2-3 points. Yes, it can be realized. There are people of realization. Do they die? No. There is momentum on the body and mind. And the perceptions will come back, but knowledge once again will not go. And here Swamiji has clearly mentioned, please. I am searching for that sentence. Okay. So, even for a moment, if that Nirvikal Samadhi is gained, the knowledge is gained. Now, a danger. People not realizing it. Maybe by reading some intellectual idea has come. And that is not equal to realization. Not at all. Even the best of convictions is not realization. Realization comes in that state of the mind. So, and then they can pose, they can delude themselves that they have realized, and they can appear like that before the people, but they are not real. That danger Swamiji is now pointing out. There is, however, a danger here. We see in every country people taking up this philosophy and saying, I am beyond all virtue and vice, so I am not bound by any moral laws. I may do anything I like. But he will not be able to like those things. You may find many fools in this country at the present time saying, I am not bound, I am God Himself. Let me do anything I like. This is not right. Although it is true that the soul is beyond all laws, physical, mental or moral, within law is bondage, beyond law is freedom. It is also true that freedom is of the nature of the soul. It is its birthright. That real freedom of the soul shines through veils of matter in the form of the apparent freedom of man. So we feel free today, that is apparent freedom. It is the real freedom through the different layers and it comes as I am free. People say deconditioning of the mind. Mind itself is the condition. So through the mind, if the freedom appears, it is only apparent. When it is realized in the soul, then it is real. Within law is bondage, beyond law is freedom. It is also true that freedom is of the nature of the soul. It is its birthright that real freedom of the soul shines through veils of matter in the form of the apparent freedom of man. Every moment of your life, you feel that you are free. We cannot live, talk, or breathe for a moment without feeling that we are free. But at the same time, a little thought shows us that we are like machines and not free. What is true then? Is this idea of freedom a delusion? One party holds that the idea of freedom is a delusion. Another says that the idea of bondage is a delusion. How does this happen? Because the freedom is apparent, Swamiji has already told. Man is really free. The real man cannot but be free. It is when he comes into the world of Maya, into name and form, that he becomes bound. As soon as I feel I am so and so, and this is my body, I cannot be free. This is called Maya, name and form. Free will is a misnomer. This is my desire, I can do anything. So this, my will cannot be free. Will can never be free. How can it be? It is only when the real man has become bound that his will comes into existence and not before. If he is transcendent and all-pervading, where is the will? There is no I. The will of man is bound, but that which is the foundation of that will is eternally free. That which is appearing as will, that is free. So even in the state of bondage, we call human life or God life on earth or in heaven, there yet remains in us that recollection of the freedom which is ours by divine right. So that comes into us wrongly. And consciously or unconsciously, we are all struggling towards it. So this is sadhak's life. There is real freedom. It comes, percolates through layers of ignorance, and we feel we are free. And we understand we are bound. So to get back that freedom is the sadhana. Consciously or unconsciously, we are struggling towards it. When a man has attained his own freedom, how can he be bound by any law? No law in this universe can bind him, for this universe itself is his. He himself is the universe. He is the whole universe. Either say he is the whole universe or say that to him there is no universe. Transcendent, immanent. No universe. Or he himself is the universe. I am different, universe is different, is ignorance. Either he perceives the whole universe as himself, or in the state of nirvikal samadhi does not perceive the universe nor himself. How can he have then all these little ideas about sex and about country? Two fundamentals he has taken. Sex, difference between man and woman. When you are reality, no body, no mind, there is no man or woman. Country, limitation, my country, my country. We can see this in Swamiji's life himself. All of us know and feel, wrongly to some extent, that Swamiji was a great patriot. Swamiji loved India like anything. And people, when Swamiji was in America, people from India writing letter to him, you come back, you come back. Swamiji wrote in a letter, what is India to me? I am the servant of the Lord. Wherever He asks me to work, I work. What is India to me? So then the question comes, why Swamiji is so much love for India? The reasoning is completely different. Swamiji is not loving India as a piece of land. That will always entangle fighting with other countries. But Swamiji knows that India is the land of spirituality. And if India grows or develops, then other countries will understand and appreciate India. And then they will also follow spirituality. Swamiji has clearly stated this. That is why I love India. If India grows in all fields of life, including economic prosperity, including material prosperity, then only the other countries can understand. They cannot understand pure spirituality. By telling we are great, nothing will happen. We were great in the past, nothing will happen. But when India grows in every field, then other countries will realize that India has some value. And then, following India, searching India, they will find spirituality is its value. And if we lose spirituality, then there is no meaning in our life. So, then the whole world will become spiritual. And that is the reason for which Swamiji loves India. So I think it is clear now. So first about sex. How can he say, I am a man, I am a woman, I am a child? Child he has used for neutral gender. Are they not lies? He knows that they are lies. How can he say that there are man's rights and these are others are woman's rights? Nobody has rights. Oh. Nobody separately exists. There is neither man nor woman. The soul is sexless, eternally pure. It is a lie to say that I am a man or a woman, or to say that I belong to this country or that. All the world is my country. There is a shloka favorite with these sannyasis. Those who want, please note down. Appears some personal names, but that is only a vision. Mata mein Parvati Devi, Mata mein Parvati Devi, Pita Devo Maheshwara, Pita Devo Maheshwara, Bandhava Shiva Bhaktascha, Bandhava Shiva Bhaktascha, Swadesho Bhuvanatrayam. Swadesho Bhuvanatrayam. Though the name Shiva and Parvati appear here, they are only representatives of God. And so, mother is Parvati and father is Shiva and all the Shiva's devotees are my brothers. The main is that my country are all the three worlds. All the world is my country, the whole universe is mine, because I had clothed myself with it as my body. Whole universe is like my cloth. Yet we see that there are people in this world who are ready to assert these doctrines and at the same time do things which we should call filthy. And if we ask them why they do so, they tell us that it is our delusion. and that they can do nothing wrong. What is the test by which they are to be judged? The test is here. So whether real Jivanmukta or a fake Jivanmukta, the test is there. And without applying this test, we blindly fall into pits by following the so-called Mahatmas. What is the test? Bad, good, spiritual. So though spiritual is above bad and good, but good is nearer to spiritual. So unless what we call bad drops away, we can never be spiritual. That is the test. Though evil and good are both conditioned manifestation of the soul, yet evil is the most external coating and good is the nearer coating of the real man, the self. That means less selfishness. Good is the nearer coating of the real man, the self. And unless a man cuts through the layer of the evil, he cannot reach the layer of good. And unless he has passed through both the layers of good and evil, he cannot reach the self. He who reaches the self, what remains attached to him? A little karma, a little bit of the momentum of past life, but it is all good momentum. Jnana avirodhi, that means that which is not opposite to knowledge. Until the bad momentum is entirely worked out and past impurities are entirely burned, it is impossible for any man to see and realize the truth. So what is left attached to the man who has reached the self and seen the truth is the remnant of the good impressions of past life, the good momentum. Even if he lives in the body and works incessantly, he works only to do good. His lips speak only benediction to all. His hands do only good work. His mind can only think good thoughts. His presence is a blessing wherever he goes. He is himself a living blessing. Such a man will, by his very presence, change even the most wicked persons into saints. Even if he does not speak, his very presence will be a blessing to mankind. Swamiji is speaking, but his other brother disciple Swami Brahmananda never gave lectures. And when Ramakrishna took him to South India, people in Chennai, Madras, asked whether he will give lectures. Swami Ramakrishna said, no, you come and visit him, that will be a blessing. So examples are there always. And most wicked persons will be changed. Even if he does not speak, his very presence will be a blessing to mankind. Can such men do any evil? Can they do wicked deeds? There is, you must remember, all the difference of pole to pole between realization and mere talking. Any fool can talk. Even parrots talk. Talking is one thing and realizing is another. Philosophies and doctrines and arguments and books and theories and churches and sects and all these things are good in their own way. That means they may be helpful. But when that realization comes, these things drop away. For instance, maps are good, but when you see the country itself and look again at the maps, what a great difference you find. So those that are real, there is a great difference between the map and the country. Now one funny thing comes to my mind here. Amongst the sannyasis, they will ask always, you are a Puri or a Giri or so and so. If a man of realization, how is a Puri or a Giri? So those that have realized truth do not require the ratiocinations of logic. Another important point. Shankara has philosophically presented the truths and so appears to be rational. And people following him die in only the reason without the realization. So those that are realized truth do not require the ratiocinations of logic and all other gymnastics of the intellect to make them understand the truth. It is to them the life of their lives concretized, made more than tangible. Tangible is subject to object. More than tangible means our own reality, experienced. It is, as the sages of the Vedanta say, even as a fruit in your hand. That is the general example. You can stand up and say it is here. So those that have realized the truth will stand up and say, here is the self. You may argue with them by the ear, but they will smile at you. They will regard it all as child's prattle. They will let the child prattle on. Naisha tarkena matir apaneya, naisha tarkena matir hapaneya. This cannot be realized through reason, cannot be contradicted through reason. They have realized the truth and are full. Purnam is their life. Suppose you have seen a country and another man comes to you and tries to argue with you that country never existed. He may go on arguing indefinitely, but your only attitude of mind towards him must be to hold that man is fit for a lunatic asylum. So the man of realization says, all this talk in the world about its little religions is but prattle. Realization is the soul, the very essence of religion. So religion means realization. Make it real in your life, realization. Religion can be realized. Are you ready? Mind has to change. Do you want it? The desire to realize should come. You will get the realization if you do, and then you will be truly religious. Until you attain realization, there is no difference between you and atheists. They do not believe, you have so-called belief without change. The atheists are sincere, but the man who says that he believes in religion and never attempts to realize it is not sincere. So, some questions have been answered properly. The next question is to know what comes after realization. She has told that after realization a man lives, but what comes after that? And he has also told that only good actions remain him. But what is his life? Suppose we have realized this oneness of the universe, that we are that one infinite being, and we are that one infinite being, and suppose we have realized that this self is the only existence and that it is the same self which is manifesting in all these various phenomenal forms, what becomes of us after that? Shall we become inactive, get into a corner and sit down there and die away? Important point, what does it do? God, what good will it do to the world? That old question, utilitarian question. So we can judge a man's greatness only by what good it will do. In the first place, why should it do good to the world if the world is unreal? Is there any reason why it should? What right has anyone to ask the question, what good will it do to the world? What is meant by that? Swamiji gives an example for us to understand. A baby likes candies. Suppose you are conducting investigations in connection with some subject of electricity and the baby asks you, does it buy candies? No. You answer. Then what good will it do? Says the baby. So men stand up and say, what good will this do into the world? Will it give us money? No. Then what good is there in it? That is what man means by doing good to the world, adding little more money. Yet, second side, yet religious realization does all the good to the world. It will remove the misery of man. People are afraid that they attain to it when they realize that there is but one. People are afraid that when they attain to it, when they realize that there is but one, the fountains of love will be dried up. That everything in life will go away and that all they love will vanish for them, as it were, in this life and in the life to come. People never stop to think that those who bestowed the least thought on their own individualities have been the greatest workers in the world. When the small self dies, you become the universal. Love becomes infinite. Working good gets much more power. Then alone a man loves when he finds that the object of his love is not any low, little, mortal thing. In the life of Buddha, his wife complained that of late you are not loving me. He said, I don't know what is love. I am going out to understand what is love. Then alone a man loves when he finds that the object of his love is not a clod of earth, but is the veritable God himself. So feeling your own reality means feeling the reality everywhere. So everybody is seen as the form of God only. The wife will love the husband the more when she thinks that the husband is God himself. The husband will love the wife the more when he knows that the wife is God himself. That mother will have the children, the mother will love the children more who think that the children are God himself. That man will love his greatest enemy who knows that that very enemy is God himself. That man will love a holy man who knows that the holy man is God himself. And that very man will also love the unholiest of men because he knows the background of that unholiest of men is even he, the Lord. Such a man becomes a world mover for whom his little self is dead and God stands in his place. So the Jivan Mukta or this Prarabdha Karma is a passive explanation of his life. If we believe in a personal God, he is the best instrument God can have. So all his life, the very living life is a blessing to the world, and it does always engage in good to the world, without attachment. Such a man becomes a world mover for whom this little self is dead and God stands in his place. The whole universe will become transfigured to him. That which is painful and miserable will all vanish. Painful and miserable only when there is a difference. Struggles will all depart and go. Instead of being a prison house where we every day struggle and fight and compete for a morsel of bread, this universe will then be to us a playground. Beautiful will be this universe then. It will be God himself. Such a man alone has the right to stand up and say, how beautiful is this world. Otherwise only senses call it beautiful and we die. He alone has the right to say that it is all good, not make-believe. This will be the great good to the world resulting from such realization. That instead of this world going on with all its frictions and clashing, if all mankind today realize only a bit of that great truth, the aspect of the whole world will be changed. If we realize it a little, a feeling grows. It is from this the Holy Mother's famous last saying is there. Nobody is a pariah, not belonging to you. Everybody is your own. Learn to make everybody your own, she said. And in place of fighting and quarreling, there would be a reign of peace. This indecent and brutal hurry, which forces us to go ahead of everyone else, will then vanish from the world. I want to be the first, I want to be the first. With it will vanish all struggle. With it will vanish all hate. With it will vanish all jealousy. And all evil will vanish forever. Gods will live then upon this earth. This very earth will have become heaven. And what evil can be there? When gods are playing with gods, when gods are working with gods and gods are loving gods, that is the great utility of divine realization. So, from the utilitarian point of view, Swamiji has answered in two ways. First, why we should count by that. Second, it is the highest good. Because there is no small self in him. Everything that you see in society will be changed and transfigured then. No more will you think of man as evil, and that is the first great gain. No more will you stand up and sneeringly cast a glance at a poor man or woman who has made a mistake. No more, ladies, will you look down with contempt upon the poor woman who walks the street in the night, because you will see even there God Himself. No more will you think of jealousy and punishments. They will all vanish. And love, the great ideal of love, will be so powerful that no whips and car will be necessary to guide mankind aright. Oh. If 1/1,000,000th part of men and women who live in this world simply sit down and for a few minutes say, "You are all God, O ye men, and O ye animals and living beings, you are all the manifestations of the one living deity," the whole world will be changed in half an hour. This is the force with which Swamiji is telling this. Only a man of realization can talk like this. What is communicating? He is making all of us like that. Instead of throwing tremendous bombshells of hatred into every corner, instead of projecting currents of jealousy and of evil thought in every country, people will think that it is all He. He is all that you see and feel. How can you see evil until there is evil in you? Unless there is duality in us, we cannot see evil. How can you see the thief unless he is there sitting in the heart of your heart? How can you see the murderer until you are yourself a murderer? Be good and evil will vanish for you. That is the real good. The whole universe will thus be changed. This is the greatest gain to society. This is the great gain to the human organism. These thoughts were thought out, worked out amongst individuals in ancient times in India. For various reasons such as the exclusiveness of the teachers and foreign conquest was another reason. Because most of the infidels could never even dream of these ideas. Even today. And to save ourselves from them, we became somewhat exclusive. For various reasons, such as the exclusiveness of the teacher. First is, if the teacher is exclusive, the himself creates a limit. Secondly, foreign invasion, foreign conquest. Those thoughts were not allowed to spread, yet they are grand truths, and wherever they have been working, man has become divine. My whole life has been changed by the touch of one of these divine men, about whom I am going to speak to you next Sunday. And the time is coming when those thoughts will be cast abroad over the whole world. Instead of living in monasteries, instead of being confined to books of philosophy to be studied only by the learned, instead of being the exclusive possession of sects and of a few of the learned, they will all be sown broadcast over the whole world, so that they may become the common property of the saint and the sinner, of men and women and children, of the learned and of the ignorant. They will then permeate the atmosphere of this world, and the very air that we breathe will say with every one of its pulsations, thou art that. So he has come back to the Vedantic truth, thou art that. And the whole universe with its myriads of suns and moons, through everything that speaks, with one voice will say, thou art that. So this is the ideal towards Swamiji is working and making all of us work. And that is the greatest way in which Swamiji has not only ended this lecture, but ended his Jnana Yoga. Now, as I told you, in the beginning itself, and repeated last time, that the song of Sannyasin is a concrete solidification of these ideals. Because this is seen in the life of a sannyasi. It is not the form of sannyasa, but the very truth. What is the meaning of sannyasa? Swamiji has explained it here. When the subject-object consciousness vanishes, Swamiji has explained in one place, in this very song of Sannyasin. Please open the opening pages of Song of Sannyasin. This para number from backside 1, 2, 3, 4th from end. There are 13 paras, 10th from the beginning, 4th from the end. Truth never comes where lust and fame and greed of gain reside. No man who thinks of woman as his wife can ever perfect be. The subject-object consciousness is lost. Nor he who owns the list of things, this is my possession, is another wrong. Nor he whom anger chains can ever pass through Maya's gates. So give this up, Sannyasin bold, say Om Tat Sat Om. So we shall take up the whole song on the coming Thursday. And after that, we will be facing the Navaratri Puja. So now itself I am giving some declarations. After Navaratri is over, another small thing I am telling you here. After Navaratri is over, after Vijayadashmi, on the 17th of October, Sunday, I am going out and reaching Calcutta Advaita Ashram on the 18th, in the morning. So if the Advaita Ashram people, Shuddhadanji and others, think I can start the class there on 18th. That we shall see. Siddhyan Swamiji will announce and circulate afterwards. So next time, Song of Sannyasin on this Thursday. Om Paratatve Sada Lino Ramakrishna Samagyaya Yo Dharma Sthapana Rato Vire Shamtam Namamyaham. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.